Hey there, welcome to day 104 of our BU 365-day challenge to do one thing every day that improves us. This month, this segment, we are focusing on our spiritual well-being. Anything and everything that has to do with spirituality, religion, things that, and what spirituality means to you, because it's different for each and every one of us. I shared earlier in this month that I consider myself spiritual but not religious anymore. But if you would have asked me up till the time I was 50, I was Catholic and I was pretty religious. I didn't go to church every Sunday. I didn't do, communion every Saturday, or not communion, confession every Saturday. But I was still, my beliefs and my behavior was in alignment with the Catholic upbringing that I had experienced. And then I had a sudden cardiac arrest, and a lot of things changed for me following that particular incident. So today we're going to talk about expectations. And expectations, it's actually one of my favorite topics. It's one of the first things I ever did and talked about when I started in a new job in corporate America. I have over a quarter century in corporate America, as well as running a whole bunch of businesses of my own. And one of the first things I do whenever a new person comes on board, or when I go to a new organization, is ask, what are the expectations? What is it that you're expecting of me? And this is true even more so of ourselves and of our spiritual nature, right? Because there's a huge component of us that is more than just our physical being, right? It's more than our thoughts. It's more than our feelings. It's more than our physical health and our wealth in our experience here physically with our five senses. We all know that there's something more to us than just this physical being, right? And then our emotions and our thoughts and beliefs, right? So, and if you don't agree with me on that, that's fine. You can, say, nope, this is it. This is it. And probably this isn't the challenge for you, but maybe it is, because it might cause you to question and say, maybe there is more to life than what I have been led to believe. At least that's where my journey took me. So what are expectations in the first place? They're a strong belief that something will happen, right? We expect something to happen, or will be the case in the future. We expect our life to turn out this way in the future, or something should be a certain way, right? And that kind of leads back to judgment. We judge and we expect things to be a certain way. One of my favorite personal sayings, which actually I think was probably the cause of more fights in my ex-marriage or with my ex-husband than almost any other topic, was we'd be having a conversation. I would inevitably say, well, we get what you expect. You get what you expect, if we weren't agreeing on something. And he absolutely vehemently disagreed with that particular statement. He didn't believe that that was true at all, that you get what you expect, or that you have control over how things turn out in your life. And I love that expression, because it reminds me that I have the power to influence and have control and impact on the way things turn out, and the way everything turns out. I at least have power and control over my emotions, over my feelings, over my thoughts, my beliefs, and over what I'm going to do about things that happen outside of me. So I like to share, and we're going to talk about quickly, I'll do it as quickly as I can. You know me, sometimes I get yappy. 13 right ways to set expectations. Now, this is to set expectations in other areas and aspects of your life. It would probably be more appropriate for relationships, or for jobs or career or money or whatever, but it actually applies to everything. So we're going to think about these things with respect to our spiritual well-being, right? So what are my expectations for my spiritual well-being? What do I expect out of my life? Our goals are actually expectations. We wouldn't set goals if we didn't expect to have them become a reality in our life, right? If you are setting goals that you don't expect to happen because you're not taking action toward them, then that's something that you need to evaluate and say, is this really something I want? I used to have goals about travel, and as certain things happened in my life, I've changed my overarching goals about travel, because I decided those things aren't a priority for me anymore. And that happens. We can expect that over time we will change the things that we want and how we want our life to turn out into goals. Our core of who we are is consistent usually throughout our life, unless we have a massive opportunity to change and transform. But otherwise, the how we get there and what exactly we get is entirely up to us. So what are some things to keep in mind when we're setting expectations for ourselves with respect to spirituality in our life and any other area of our life. Number one, we want to be clear. We want to provide clarity, context, and alignment. We want to make sure that our big spiritual, and let's talk about goals as expectations, because I think they're almost interchangeable. Our expectations about our spiritual well-being and our spiritual life and our spiritual experiences need to be clear to us. They don't have to be clear to anybody else, but they have to be clear to us. We have to know what we want. How many times have we said that? At least 4, because we're on our 4th area and aspect of our life as we're going through the challenge. So we spent at least 4 specific days on what do you want in this particular area of your life. And then we've used the SOAP framework to help us get and move toward that and to automate the process of moving toward that. Number 2, speak in plain words that uplift you. If you're thinking about and talking about and writing about and planning and thinking about your expectations for your spiritual life, they should be uplifting, right? And I guess one of the things to think about would be, what are my expectations for how I'm going to show up in the world? What are my expectations for how my life is going to turn out? We talked about judgment the other day. What are my expectations for when I transition and die? Am I going to be judged, or am I going to be doing a self-analysis, self-judgment, and self-evaluation on my life experience? Something to think about. So we want to speak in plain words as we're thinking about and planning out and talking about our expectations for our spiritual well-being. Otherwise, why would we want to do something? If we're thinking, and this is one of my pet peeve words, the word sacrifice. So often, I'm in the business realm and the online realm these days, and so often you will hear that entrepreneurs and business people and people that want to create something different in their life need to sacrifice. They need to sacrifice going to the bars and hanging out with their friends and going to games and doing all these fun activities that everybody else is doing, because they have to give those up in order to build and grow and supersize their business. And I say, poppycock, it's nonsense. You don't have to sacrifice unless you feel that it's a sacrifice. If you are not making a choice and choosing to do the things that get you what you want, then it is a sacrifice. But I say, I don't sacrifice anything, right? Because I don't think that we have to sacrifice. If I make a choice, then I didn't sacrifice. It's like FOMO, fear of missing out. I never knew what that was till I came online. I don't feel FOMO if I've made a choice to do something or a choice not to do something. If something isn't right for me right now, I say no to it. And then I can release any fear of missing out or any sacrifice, because I know it's not right for me right now. This is true of our expectations in our spiritual well-being, as well as the other areas and aspects of our life. Number 3, ask rather than tell. Ask yourself questions. Remember, we're always thinking in questions. So ask yourself questions about what you really want as far as your spiritual well-being. What does that look like for you? Think about the future of what you want your life to go like. It's called pre-framing. We pre-frame and we imagine ahead of time how we want our life to go. One of the tricks and strategies for having and getting the outcomes that you want in different situations and interactions more often is by practicing them ahead of time. Every professional athlete knows this, if they've got a good coach, that you practice ahead of time in your mind, in your imagination and visualization before you actually go out and do something, do anything. We can all use those tools and abilities and strategies just like other people are. One of the fastest ways we can learn and achieve our goals and expectations is by modeling and learning from other people. So number 4, understand what success looks like for you. What does spiritual well-being look like for you? What kind of spiritual well-being do you want to have in your life? What kind of relationship with a higher power or God do you want to have in your life? Number 5, be open about what your expectations are and why. Now, you don't have to be open with anybody else if we're talking about just our spiritual well-being, but you do have to be open and honest with yourself, right? If you want to have a certain relationship with God, your religion, your higher power, yourself, your spirit and soul and bigger you, then you have to be honest with yourself at least about what that is for you. Number 6, ensure that your expectations are attainable. Now, I will contend that anything you can imagine is absolutely positively attainable and possible. If anybody else has ever done anything like you want before in any area of your life, even in spiritual well-being, of course you can achieve that as well. Number 7, include others in your expectation setting process. And I would say for spirituality, only if appropriate, right? If there is a religious leader or a person in your family or friends group or an expert that you trust, go ahead and let them give input. But remember, this is your spiritual well-being, and no one can determine what is best for you and your spiritual well-being, just like nobody can determine what's best for your physical, mental, emotional health and well-being as well as you can. So you can include others in the process when appropriate. Number 8, ask others about their personal goals in the area of spirituality. There's nothing wrong with, and always invite them to share, but give them permission that if it's personal and too personal to them, that they don't have to share, right? But when appropriate, we can learn from other people and model other people. So if there's somebody that you admire, I really admire my mom's faith and dedication to her spiritual practices. And I learn a lot from her just by asking questions. And she's very open and willing to share her beliefs, her faith, her ways of doing things and the practices and things that she does without expecting anyone else to do the same things that she does, right? And so those are the kind of people you might go to learn about more possibilities with respect to your expectations for spirituality. Number 9, communicate your vision clearly and simply. Again, I like to boil down my expectations in each area and aspect of my life, otherwise my goals, my long-term visions and goals for my life. I like to boil them down to 2 or 3 different big things and statements that I can remember and repeat and remind myself, especially in times of stress and trial, right? When I remember I'm being challenged and I want to remember the type spirit and soul and being and person that I want to show up as, those are the times I want to be able to remember a quick sentence or a quick reminder of what it is that I am working toward achieving. And then if we have that, it gives us a sense of certainty and power and decision-making ability that other people don't have. It gives us a level of confidence in, we know our journey, we know where we're going. And when we know where we're going, it gives us a boost that a lot of people don't have, a sense of direction. So I like to boil it down to a couple of statements, a couple of sentences, usually 3 at the most for each area and aspect of my life, or it gets to be a lot, right? It gets to be too many things that I'm remembering. Some areas I have a few more than others. So for example, my financial area of my life, I have more big goals and objectives than 3. But with respect to businesses and money and finances and streams of income, things like that, I have more than 3 in that area. In physical, I think the other areas, for the most part, I just limit myself to 3 or fewer so that I can remember them and call upon them whenever I need to. Number 10, explain and prioritize your KPIs from day one. Now, what this means, this is a list I put together when I was sharing expectations with people in corporate America, and I still use today. But KPIs are key performance indicators. Even with respect to our spirituality, I think we need a way to measure if we're moving toward what we want or away from what we want, right? If we're moving toward it, we need a way to measure that. And maybe it's just checking in with, are we doing the little things to move us toward that on a regular basis? Do we have a daily practice, and are we doing it every day? Do we build something into our habits to improve our spirituality and help us meet our expectations? And then if we do it, then yes, that's our KPI. That's our key performance indicators. Just, did we do it or not? If one of your spiritual practices is to meditate or pray every day, either you did it or you didn't, right? And so that takes something that's objective. A lot of our spiritual outcomes and our spiritual well-being expectations are hard to measure, right? It's like feelings and emotions, super hard to measure. So we have to find objective ways to make some of those subjective things easier for us to keep track of. Maybe you just journal or write down, and that's your key performance indicator. But we want to have some way of measuring if we're moving toward what we want or not. Number 11. Oh, Invite and have honest conversations about spirituality with people that you trust and care about, and that trust and care about you. This is one you're kind of on your own. You have to decide whether you will or will not have conversations about your spiritual expectations and goals or not. I have very few conversations about my spiritual well-being and my spiritual beliefs and thoughts and feelings, because the majority of my life is spent in other activities. I have strong faith and beliefs and spiritual aspects of my life, but they're personal, and so I keep them to myself. I have a few conversations with my mom, like I said, one of my sisters, and a few other close friends and acquaintances, but it's not something that I talk about every day. So you decide the level of conversations that you would want to have about that. Number 12, set the tone for a positive frame of mind. If you're setting expectations about your soul and your spirit and your well-being and your spiritual well-being, you want to come at it from a positive nature, right? You don't want to think, oh, I'm a sinner, I'm going to burn in hell, so what's the point to everything? That would not be the best way to approach your spiritual well-being. But again, it's up to you. If that motivates and works for you, go for it. And then finally, number 13, trust people to meet your expectations. Believe that you, because you have 100% control over yourself, are going to meet your spiritual expectations, right? Again, trust that you, as well as other people, are going to positively contribute to what it is that you need to do to have spiritual well-being. So what's our action item today? Think about these things. Think about your expectations for your spiritual well-being, and just share one spiritual expectation that you have, maybe for yourself, or how you interact with other people and their spirits, right? Or whatever. Just do this. Think about expectations, which is really, I guess, goals for your spiritual well-being area. And then just share one. Or share one that you think a lot of people have. That might be an easier one. If you don't want to share a personal one, say, I think a lot of people have this spiritual expectation. That'd be awesome too. All right, any questions, hit me up. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow, and we are talking about, let me just take a peek ahead and see what we are discussing tomorrow. Today was expectations. Tomorrow is, we're getting close to Easter. Oh, lessons learned is our topic tomorrow. Another one of my favorite topics. Imagine that. All right, have a great day. Questions asked. Be with you tomorrow. Bye.